Welcome to another episode of Getting Real in the Field. And this is the show where we tell you about all the things that you hate to do, which is following up, making phone calls, calling your past clients, sphere of influence, special events, all the things that are just mundane. And we just want to make money as real estate agents. That's all we want to do. We just want to get leads. We just want the hot leads. We want to shortcut all the things. We don't want to spend money on things that don't work. And I'm your host, JP Fluellen and Keck. Tay. There he is.
I am
there
like,
he is.
you
The
are
man,
dressed up.
the myth, the legend.
You are dressed up tonight, my friend. And look at me. I'm just wearing my t-shirt for this evening.
I know. I was at church tonight, dude. My kids are tonight. Yeah. So we were at church and they got to hang out and eat pizza and play games and stuff. And we talked about theological things tonight. Yeah. It was deep.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It was good. Good stuff.
Okay. So let's talk real estate tonight.
Let's do it.
Besides theology, we're going to talk about real estate too.
Well, there's some theology. It's very religious when you think about like methodology and like that's why religion works, right? Because you plug into a system, and that system gives you a belief, and that belief gives you faith that you're going to get a result, right? And so that's kind of like with leads, right? We have to plug into a specific system, and then we have a belief that if we continue to do what we believe is going to get us a result, then we're going to get more sales. And so, and I think realtors, we've plugged into this realtor, system. And so what we're going to talk about tonight is specifically a one lead source, which everybody loves to hate. But they feel like it's this necessary evil in their lives. The Z word.
Z word. Let me guess. It's so we're going to talk about Zillow, right? Let me guess.
Yeah.
Zillow, right? Let me guess.
Yes. What word begins with Z and ends in W that everybody just loves to hate, right? But here, so everybody's. I hear this a lot that brand new agents, they just jump right into Zillow leads because they know that they're going to get a result. And what's funny is you hear a lot of old school agents are like, I'll never pay for leads. Forget that. I did this old school. It took me 7 years to get a sustainable business, and these young people and their technology, and so here's the deal. Like I built my entire business off of online lead generation, hands down. I built the whole thing. I became a top agent when I was at Coldwell Banker. We had 80 agents in our office and I was number 3. So, it works. If you know what you're doing and you don't consider a lead as a one and done, because that's where a lot of the mistakes are made, is leads are one and done. And then you don't follow up with that lead and you're just chasing the next lead. And it's weird. There's like this weird phenomenon where agents hate calling their past clients. It's just, I don't know what it is. It's like, oh, I don't want to call them and find out how the house is doing. And then they complain about all the things that are broken with it. And they could, and they get upset because, you screwed me. And well, it's funny that you called me because I've been meaning to call you for 5 years, And so, but so, yeah, go ahead.
I'm going to ask you, are you currently using it right now?
Zillow?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And
I use it.
So have you been always using this since you started or just recently?
So I used Zillow back when it was in its infancy stages. Back when you would get like a lot of leads. Like it was you know, 2 or 3 a day, every day, constantly. Now they weren't good leads. Now they were good leads if you had good systems, and so like for me, it was always like turn the fire hose on first and then figure out how to like actually use the hose to put out the fire,
Yeah.
and so I didn't have good systems. So I wasn't a trained firefighter at that time. And so I was just, my problem was I needed people to call first, and then I just tried to figure it out from there. So that was very experimental at that point. So I used them for a while, and it was too much too fast, and so I shut it off.
Hmm.
And then probably oh 3 years later, um, they started coming up with a better system, and I had this gal. She was relentless. She's like, JP, we've changed. We've changed. We're your best friend. If you want to know what it's like to get a warm hug from a client before you actually get that lead, you need to work with us. And I was like, no way. Like I didn't I, like I was just so hard to. She's like, you just got to. And I was like, no. But What's your cheapest thing you got? And so she's like, well, we could get you in for like $150 a month. And at that time, 150, I could lose, 6 months of 150 a month. It'd still be okay. And
That must have
so,
been eons ago, by the
oh,
way.
it was a long time ago.
It
And
was another era before the
yeah. So
dinosaurs
this was
were hatched.
probably like 2011, maybe. No, no, no. It was probably 2012, 2013. And so I remembered, I'll never forget this. She's like, so I'd signed up with Zillow, and I did that for about a year, and I'd gotten a few closings from it, not a ton, but she's like, JP, we've got this new thing where we're calling the leads for you. And I was like, wait, what? And she's like, yeah, it's full concierge. I was like, you're going to work the lead and you're going to get me leads. And I was like, well, how much is it? And so you got to remember, at this time, I'm paying $150 a month. And she says, it's 500 a month, but you got to go to 500. That's the first tier of where we can do this for you. And so I was like, oh, $500 a month. That's a lot. I started doing the math, and I'm like, how many closings I have to get to make this work? And so it was like, so I set a date. I said, okay, let's do it in January. In January, I'm going to pull the trigger. So I pulled the trigger in January, and I'm telling you, I was getting one or two like ready to go, hot off the presses leads that were ready to take action. So I was closing about 75% of leads coming in at that time.
Nice. Yeah.
And so just like any business, when they start to see something that works, they start to now at this. So then a year later, so they started overthinking it, and they started messing with the algorithms, and they started listening to agents too much instead of giving them what they actually need. Kind of like the Apple mentality. Apple never asked their customers what they wanted. They already knew what they wanted, and they just gave it to them, you know? And that's how what made Apple successful was, it's like, we know what you want, and we're going to solve a problem that you don't even have, and we're going to give it to you. But Zillow started listening too much to the agent, and they started trying to get into the mindset of, all of the like the little things. And that's where they made this fundamental mistake. Instead of like, we have a proven concept that's working, let's just gonna roll with that. So a year later, they rearranged their whole program, and we were getting too many non-qualified leads. And so then they're like, JP, you have to spend $1,000 a month in order for this to work. And I was like, oh, and then
Oh
of
my
course
gosh.
now, you're drinking the Zillow Kool-Aid at this point.
Yeah.
And so, and it's tough because you do get closings, like you do get results. But you have to do your ROI, like you have to run your numbers. If you're not closing, at least 2 to 3 a month from your ad spend,
Yeah.
then you're not going to get an ROI. Like you're just not.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like it's a necessary evil for me right now. So
Is it?
it
So wait,
is. And
but
so I'm
okay,
just
so
trying to find a balance between like, how much predictability I can get out of it.
yeah.
So
So how I guess like so a couple of things I've heard from in talking with like hundreds of agents, right? Um, for some people it works, like sounds like it works for you. For some people, it doesn't work at all, right? And so I would think that you would want to test it out and see if it's worth it for you. And
and I think we've mentioned on other podcasts, every lead source works. It just
yeah,
depends on how or what your work ethic looks like.
yeah,
Because if you're getting a name and you're getting a phone number and you're getting an email address,
yeah,
those are three directional ways to attack that lead. And if you're not doing it with enough force and consistency,
yeah,
then you're never going to get a closing. And it doesn't matter what the lead source is. If you're not
absolutely.
doing it with enough velocity, then you're never going to get the result that you want.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah.
I was going to say though, a couple of things though that I would say if I've heard you say, and I would kind of highlight for our audience listening to this, you got to diversify too. I don't think you're, and just kind of make sure you're not solely dependent on Zillow right now to say, hey, that's all I have. You're doing a whole bunch of like, you got a, shall I say, a balanced portfolio to your lead gen. Really, you've got Zillow, you've got Google, you've got Facebook, you've got, what else do you have?
So there's tons of them. There's Fast Expert, there's Homelight, there's
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
there's Dave Ramsey, there's all these different lead sources. So I think the more you have, I just got a lead from Effective Agent
Yeah.
and got a listing this week on that one. So the more sources you have, I think the more full your pipeline is. And I'm actually going to be taking just a free 5-day challenge. This guy just reached out to me. He's like, I'm doing a free 5-day challenge on how to build your pipeline. I'm like, it's free. I'll try it. Whatever. I think you got to always, I think if you get too complacent, and you get too just, stuck in one lead source, especially like right now, like old school lead generation, like open houses and floor time, especially in the
Mhm.
larger operations. Like there was people that were doing that old school style and their businesses completely shut down over COVID. Like
Wow.
they
Yeah,
completely
for
shut
sure. And
down.
that's why it is important. Like, you talk to your financial planner, they always talk about balancing your portfolio. Same thing for lead generations is what you're saying.
Yep.
Now, I'm curious. One of the things that I always hear of, and I'll share with you one story. I won't name the name, but I know an agent that I've gotten to know, and he would spend, get this, 30 to $40,000 a month on Zillow. It works, it works, but you're constantly running on this hamster wheel. Like, the hamster wheel is just spinning, spinning, spinning. The poor guy. And I said, you got to get off of the hamster wheel and balance the portfolio of what you're saying. Um, you know, I think Zillow is great for, generating leads. Is it worth it? It really depends on you, right? And the thing for him was that he was solely dependent on Zillow and he couldn't get off the hamster wheel, and the guy was running crazy. He was in his late 30s, had a
Mm.
heart attack.
Oh,
So I mean, thank God he realized it was a wake up moment for him. But you've got to balance your portfolio, not constantly running, because Zillow, you're buying leads. You're not building your brand. You're not really building your brand or your business itself too. So, you've got to kind of make sure that you're doing other stuff to be able to kind of build your business, build your brand as well too. Otherwise, you could be running this endless hamster wheel until you die.
right. And especially with large companies like that, you their prices will just continue to increase.
Yep. It takes away
You know,
from your margins.
yep.
And so therefore you got to spend more and you got to do more. And then therefore you got to have more transactions. And therefore, it just keeps building and building. And That's
Yeah,
where
and
I
I
say,
think also too, like a lot of the different lead sources have different methods of closure. Like we talked before the show that with Zillow leads, these leads are highly qualified leads at this point. So once you finally get the handoff from that lead, they're ready to go. So just book the appointment. So it's not like, like a Facebook or a Google lead where it's it's warmish, but you still have to create rapport. They don't know you. They're still trying to figure out why you're calling them. You still got to create that kind of that warm, fuzzy feeling first, and then figure out where they're at, and then what they need, and then where they want to go, and then what part of town they want to live on, and all this kind of stuff. Whereas a Zillow lead is already like they've picked the house. They kind of already know the neighborhood they want to live in, and they're ready to go. What they don't know is like, how do I pay for this house?
yeah,
And so when you get to that point, it's a little bit different. You want them to just jump right into your ecosystem, whereas in like a colder lead, you've got to show them what the ecosystem is before they want to actually do something with you.
yeah. And I would, and so with that, I totally agree. I think that, you got to balance out. By the way, so I totally think that one of the things that I help a lot of clients, and even though with our AI is all about follow up, but one of the things I do talk about clients and coaching is exactly what you do. You've got to build up the brand reputation so that people come back to you and say, and nurture them, to be able to follow up with them so that they become ready and you can farm them, right? And if you
Mm-hmm.
keep doing that cycle and building that pipeline, then you can farm them. It will take more time, but you've got something that's longer lasting when you're building your brand overall.
Exactly.
So,
And one of the things that, this is another old school tactic is to get just to get more leads and more listings is 5x5s. Have you heard about those?
yeah, yep, yep.
That's just an old school tactic. Hey, we just listed 123 Main Street.
That's
Let's see
right.
if 123, 124 Main Street's available and 125 Main Street,
Yeah.
and then when you're doing it, make sure you're doing open houses. And I know that people that, the houses are going so fast right now that you don't have time to do open houses. However, I just force the issue. So like what I'm doing is a new strategy where I'm doing coming soons for like
Ah,
4 weeks so
yeah,
that I
yeah,
can market around the neighborhood and get some more opportunities that way.
yeah. And that's I totally agree. If the house even lasts for that long.
I know I might have people knocking down my door and being like, just get it on the market already. And I'm like, dude, they still have to like clean the house and paint and do a bunch of stuff to it first.
No, we'll take as is.
Yeah, as is, where is, no repairs,
And by the way, I will
appraisal
pay on
waiver.
top of more on top
I
of
know. I'll pay you 20K
that's
over
the
if you just
crazy
give it to
stuff.
me now. Like,
Yeah.
it's funny. I made an offer on a house in a tiny little town about 45 minutes from here, for 20,000 over asking, and the house went under contract for 40,000 over asking,
Holy
and
macro.
they waived the appraisal and they waived the inspections.
Wow.
40K over. Like,
That's
you just
crazy.
can't
That's
compete with that.
craziness there, man.
Can't compete with that.
I wait for it to get a little bit more calmer, more balance, and more common sense because that's crazy.
You would think, but if you want to learn more about what we think about that, check out our last episode
Yes.
on interest rates and the effect on the market, because it's pretty eye opening
Yeah.
on that. So, but
Okay.
I think that's pretty much it on Zillow leads, man. I think it's just really, get a solid budget, stick to it, don't spend any more than what you've budgeted, and then just play around with different lead sources.
Agreed.
You know,
And the key thing, it's about the follow-up.
it
If you
is
don't follow up,
100%.
you will lose whatever lead source that you have. It will not work.
That's right. And what's crazy is the leads, especially with Zillow, by the time it's a hot handoff, they've called those leads already up to 13 times before they hand it off to you. So then when you get it and you don't continue to follow up, then you've lost all that momentum, and then you've paid for stuff that they've already you've paid for them to follow up at that point. And then if you don't continue the follow up, then you're just throwing money away.
Yeah.
And I was just talking to a gal that she's an expert in sales, and she was saying that the new number for follow-ups is right around 30 attempts now.
Oh,
Because because think about it, the consumer now has all of this information they can get.
yeah.
So now you have to bring something special to the table for them to even want to talk to you.
I don't know. I mean, to be honest, so with for our platform with all the lead follow up with the AI platform that we use with Annette, right?
Yeah.
I would say honestly, the data still shows that it's about 7 to 8 times. But having said that, the most record that I've had for a lead that converted to actually an actual listing and ended up in the agent working with them for listing their home and selling their home, it took 28 times a follow up. 28.
So think about it like this: if you had a checkbox for every one of your leads, and you had a checkbox,
Yeah.
and you just check that box, and every time, and you're just determined to get to 30 on every single one, that means you're almost guaranteed on every single lead that you're going to get them on the phone.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Guaranteed.
If you're following up.
If you're following up and you're determined to follow up 30 times on every lead, you will be a master at this business.
And if you can't do the follow up for 30 times, give us a call.
Right. AI that junk, dude. AI that junk.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, on that note, how can people get a hold of you, Keck, if they want to learn more about what's going on in your world?
Well, you can visit us on our website at fieldnotes.ai, or you can feel free to reach out to me directly at 425-740-0260. And you, JP?
Well, if you guys want to get a hold of me, you can just type in JP Flew Ellen in the Google machine, and I'm the only one on planet Earth. Or you can DM me on any of the social platforms, or you can call me directly, 307-772-1184. Or you can email me at jp@titanreteam.com. Or you can book a call at wyomingrealestatecareers.com and just click book a call. So,
okay, awesome. And don't forget to like and subscribe. And please provide us comments too, because that's where we get the feedback, and we want to help you answer whatever questions that you guys may have.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate you guys hanging in there this far, and we will catch you guys on the next episode. Peace.
Peace.